Hi guys, I am joined today by Greg from rent.com.au, and we're going to talk a little bit about the rental markets at the moment, as well as some new initiatives that rent.com.au have launched. So I'm really excited to be speaking with you today, Greg.
Thanks for having us.
No worries at all. So the markets are a little bit insane at the moment, the rental markets. I wonder if you have any insights, what you've noticed during this lockdown period.
It's all over the shop, right? So even, it's changing daily. We've seen obviously new announcements for Sydney area. So it's in general, I guess, if we look at the broader picture, we obviously have less tourists, less people here studying, etc. So we've certainly seen some of the inner city come off, especially apartments, Melbourne, Sydney. There's a couple of reasons for that, I guess. Obviously work from home is pretty well normalized now for many workers. So needing to be in the CBD has decreased. People looking for a bit more room and space. So rather than paying, $800 to be in the city, you can spend a similar amount of money and maybe be in a beach suburb or something. So it is really, there are micro markets within markets. So, and I know it sounds pretty silly, but popular beachside, country towns, rural, they're all under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of competition there. Docklands in Melbourne, other end of the scale, rent one, get two free sort of thing there at the moment. So, but the reality of it is nothing really changes for renters. We kind of do it pretty tough anyway. So most people, if you're looking, you're probably going to be in a competitive environment. So put your best foot forward. There's a bunch of tools on your side, on our side to help people, prepare. So take it seriously and look around. And what we've seen is COVID's kind of changed a little bit in what people want. People looking for outdoor areas rather than, whether that's a balcony versus something that's all closed up. People looking for an extra bit of area for maybe work from home to set it up so you're not trying to work on the lounge room table or the dining table, sorry. So people's tastes are changing a little bit, but I don't think we've fully seen the implications yet. It's hard to see, certainly this side of Christmas, even full mobility returning in terms of us being even able to look at properties properly. And then early into next year, we've seen a lot of big companies starting to formalise their work from home. AGL, who we work with, they've formalised 2 days a week is a given for everybody. So, those sort of things start to change what people want to do and where they want to live. So it's really interesting, I think. And it's not just in Australia we're seeing it. It's kind of similar shades all around the world, especially in the big cities.
Yeah, we spoke to Rodolfo from Replay Listings in New York recently, and they saw a mass exodus of people from the city during their lockdown period, although he did say they're starting to come back in now. But yeah, I was reading the other day something about vacancy rates and how they're reaching almost zero in a lot of places. I think there were 4 suburbs in Brisbane where they were almost zero. And only rising in Sydney and Melbourne sort of city areas.
Well, we in Perth went through a phase probably, because Perth is not locked down at the moment. We had pretty well less than 1% vacancy rate across the country, across the city. And that started to ease off a little bit, but it's still hard. And it gets especially hard if you're, you've got some extra criteria. So one of my bugbears is pets. Pets is still a challenge. And it's really a case of, if you've got a couple of dogs that need a bit of yard, you're kind of taking what you can get. And then what the other interesting angle too is some of your popular regional centres, nice country towns, bit of beach, etc. What's compounding it there is the lack of staff. So they're trying to bring in staff wherever they can. They're offering great incentives for people to get there, but we're also finding that vacancy rates in some of those popular areas are almost to zero as well. So housing those staff becomes a real issue as well. So yeah, look, it's really tough. I've got kids that work in hospitality, and they're locked up at the moment. They've obviously lost income because of pubs being shut, etc. So yeah, it is. There's a lot of people doing it tough, and like always, renters seem to do a bit tougher than most.
Yeah, I've noticed as well an increase in. So we had the memorandum on evictions, but the first one ran out, and then there was a bit of a period of time before the next one started, and there were quite a few people got served in New South Wales anyway, with eviction notices during that period, and they just don't have anywhere to go. They're applying for proper tens and tens of properties every day and not having any luck. It's a bit of a
I mean, that's a good point. We're seeing it work both ways, and I want to be clear here. Property managers, it's a tough gig, right? Being a property manager, and but we're actually seeing quite good levels of cooperation between tenants and landlords and agents, and it's not just the landlord not being allowed to evict. We're also finding situations where the tenants need to move, whether they've lost income or there's another opportunity somewhere else. So look, overwhelmingly, we're finding it's working, but there are always cases. And look, when people are applying for property, especially if you're in a situation where time's not on your side, meet with the agent, understand how they want their application to process. There's dozens of different application tools in the market. So the best one is the one that the agent prefers. Now, some agents will want you to write everything out on a piece of paper, remember those days, but if that's what they want, do it. You're trying to be as seamless and smooth into that process as you can. And if you're looking at a particular area and there's a lot of competition in that area, building a relationship with the local property management team, just going into the office, introducing yourself, explaining what you're after, there's a lot of really common sense things that you can do to try and take a bit of the stress out of it. Because I don't know how many times you have moved. I've moved more than I'll ever want to, but it is the most horrible thing to go through.
Yeah, it's already a very stressful process. So some really good tips there. Obviously, each real estate agent or property manager has their own processes. So getting in touch with them, finding out what their processes are and sticking to those.
Well, and most of that will become apparent when you inspect the property. So, and look, I know with borders down and whatnot, there's a lot of people looking to do remote, and there's a lot of tools and walkthroughs. But once again, still speak to the agent. Agents, if they've got 5 people that they know face to face and have walked into the property, and another 5 that they've never met, they're trying to find the most suitable tenant. So they will lean towards those ones that they've seen. Obviously, it's not always possible, especially with our border situation, but you just got to do the best you can do. It's tough for everybody.
Absolutely. And speaking of those ideas and tools of how to help renters in the current situation, I know that rent.com.au has recently launched a new tool to help renters out with their rental payments, rent pay. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, this is we've been working on this for a while, and it's dropped into market. This month we've done a bit over $1 million in rent so far with customers through there, so it's going pretty well. It's look, it comes from the heart with us, like everything we do. We're just trying to make renting less shit, right? And there's so many ways that can be done. So with rent pays, it covers ticks a number of boxes, and we talk to our customers, ask them what they wanted. So the big one was recognition and reward. We've got the vast majority of people that are renting are doing absolutely the right thing. They're paying their money each month, etc., exiting the property perfectly. So we bought in a product called Score Builder, which we think is pretty cool. It's the first time it's ever been done in the Australian market. It's actually used quite a bit in the UK market. But basically what we do is each time you pay your rent each week or month, we positively increment your credit score. So the theory behind this is if you rent for 3 years or 5 years and you use rent pay, and then eventually if you transition to a mortgage or another loan, then what you've done renting over the last 3 to 5 years counts, and you'll actually get a better deal on your mortgage or your loan because you've got this status and this growth in your, I guess, financial wellness. Then on top of that, there's a whole bunch of flexibility tools. What customers were telling us that they go and rent a house, the agent says, pay me on the 15th of every month. And customers are asking for a bit of flexibility. Can I pay weekly because I like to, just know where my money's at? Or can I synchronize it with my payday? It's my biggest expense. Take it out, put it somewhere else so I can't spend it. It allows me to budget properly. So we have all those tools. One of the really interesting tools, and I've got to be honest, one of the ones I like the most, but is what we call our buffer. So we had 40% of our customers asking to pay more than their rent. Now, that sounds a bit counterintuitive initially, but if we look at the casualisation of our workforce, especially in younger people in Australia, we find that if someone's going on holiday or is planning to go on holidays in 8 weeks or 12 weeks, they're not going to be earning. So what the buffer allows you to do is put a little bit more away each week or each month, and then you'll build it up and you'll be able to cover your rent. So it just, once again, it's just common sense and helps you. And I think it's really important that it takes the stress and the pressure away and it makes life a little bit simpler. So there's a whole bunch of features in there. There's a whole bunch more to come, but the core of rent pay is to make life a little bit simpler, give the customer flexibility on paying as much as they like and whenever they like. We guarantee it to the agent. We increment your credit score. So yeah, it's a really cool tool, and we haven't even started marketing it yet. So that'll happen progressively over the coming weeks and months. But we're really excited about it. It's one of those products that it does no harm, and we love renters. The biggest group of renters are what we call our logical renters, and they're people that are renting for entirely logical, practical reasons. You're 28-year-old graduate in Sydney, dream job. You're not going to try and jump into that market. And if you do, it's going to cost you probably more than you could afford, or more importantly, more than you're comfortable with, because you don't want to give up your flexibility. We have 24% of our renters are actually rent vestors or saving to be a rent vestor. So they might want to live in Bondi, but they probably can't afford to buy there. So they might look to buy in a regional centre, for example, or in a different state. So yeah, it's really interesting, the rental market, and the number one driver for us is to change the attitude in the market. There is still this perception, and thankfully it's reserved for people my age and above, but there's perception that renting is somehow a negative or a secondary choice. We need to remove that. It is simply not the case. That if you're under the age of 30, you're single, or you're a couple, you're in a big city, you're loving life, building your careers, all that sort of stuff, why are you going to tie yourself down and remove that flexibility? And look, COVID aside, but pre-COVID, we were one of, our millennial generation coming through, or people in that 20 to 40 group, are the best educated we've ever had. They're the most traveled, they're the most financially savvy. They're not scared to dabble in crypto or the stock market. They don't see owning a home as the only vehicle to build wealth and security. I think they've actually got a really, they have a better balance with lifestyle and that sort of stuff. So these are the sort of people we're looking after.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a mindset change, isn't it? It used to be you sort of graduate school, you look for a place, and that's going to be your biggest asset through your life. But obviously we've seen at the moment house prices, I believe the RBA predicted house prices to rise 19% this year. So owning a property, it's just not feasible for so many people. And it's honestly crazy to me that there is still that stigma attached, and we definitely see it. So we run a TikTok channel where renters ask questions, and a lot of the comments in there, we still get people saying, why don't you just buy a place? Like it's so easy, just go buy a place. And it's just not on the radar of so many people. But you're right, there's so many different reasons.
I think also the old school, buy where you can afford out in the outer suburbs, and have no carpets for 2 years and all that sort of stuff. I think people are just a bit over that. They live more in the moment, and I certainly don't mean that negatively. I mean they have a better balance of their lifestyle, their friend groups, their mental health, all that sort of thing these days. And Yeah, I look, you know, I've got kids in 3 different states, all renting. They probably will never live in those states for the rest of their lives. They love the flexibility, the choices. They're all building their careers. They love the fact that they could, once again, COVID aside, jump overseas for a couple of years, all those sort of things. And they just don't want to they're concerned by giving up that, jumping into a large mortgage. You kind of remove a lot of that flexibility. And they'll jump into the property market at some point. One of the interesting post-COVID things will be where when all the dust settles, I'm confident that good regional areas will start to actually become pretty attractive. Now, that's not only from a price point of view, but large regional centres pretty well tick all your boxes in terms of education, medical, all that sort of stuff, and with work from home and the ability to, so that's going to be really interesting. And we're already seeing it. We're seeing some impacts now with commercial vacancy rates in the cities and whatnot. So it's going to be an interesting few years. But yeah, the world is changing, and the drive to get in on the property ladder straight out of school is, the current generation aren't thinking the same way. And I do not think that's a bad thing.
No, I agree. I mean, I myself, I'm a long-term renter. I actually bought property back in the UK. About a year later, I decided I wanted to leave the UK, and then I was obviously stuck with a property. So I rent that out now. But honestly, trying to rent out a property from across the world it's a nightmare. Every single year, the tenant moves out, I get a new one in, and it's just trying to organize things from overseas. It's impossible. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, although my mother tells me it's the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, no, your mum would say that. And look, one day, one day when we can all change the world, renting a property will be online, automated. You'll have all the information on the property. You'll be able to pass on all your information.
Yeah.
Your status will be known. You'll be a platinum renter, so agents will bend over backwards for you. That's the world where we've got to get to, where the way it's transacted and managed suits the current generation that are highly literate in digitally and want that seamless experience. And that the coolest stat I love rolling out, I hope it's true, I think it's true, is so 65% of our customers are under the age of 40. And this is the generation that Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, these are the sort of people that, and those companies didn't invent a new segment. They just completely revolutionized an existing segment. And that generation of people jumped on board and supported it because it provided an extreme level of service and utility that wasn't there before. So yeah, I think real estate will change as companies like you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
Companies like us are doing it. We're up against some pretty big old school people, but world moves on.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're trying to do here at Dwell, and obviously you guys are making some awesome steps in that direction as well. So if anybody wants to check out what rent.com are doing, you can head over to rent.com.au. They offer a range of services. Free listings is the main business, but there's a lot of extra tools on there that you can help assist your rental journey. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Look, thanks for the opportunity, and look, it's crazy times. I feel for everybody, including ourselves. That's just got to do the right thing and get vaccinated.
Plodding along. Yep. All right, thanks so much.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.